When a promising young student made a new friend on the internet, he was completely unaware of the fatal mistake he'd made. In the friendly town of Caterham in the Tandridge district of Surrey, England, Barry Bednar and Lauren LaFave welcomed their first child. It was a healthy baby boy they named Breck, as a tribute to Breckenridge, Colorado, where the couple met and fell in love. 3 years later, the family grew even more when Lauren gave birth to triplets. Lauren recalled that Breck adored his siblings and spent a lot of time playing with them growing up. The warm-hearted big brother excelled in school and was popular among his peers. He was even a member of the Air Cadets with the 135 Squadron in Red Hill and regularly attended church services in his hometown. Everything seemed to be going great for a while, but then Barry and Lauren separated just 6 years after the triplets were born. While Barry moved out of the family home, he remained an active figure in his children's lives. However, there was something dark brewing under the surface of Breck's perfect exterior. Around his 14th birthday, Lauren started to notice some troubling changes in her eldest son, namely that he would isolate himself in his room and play computer games for hours on end. On top of that, his moods were wildly unpredictable, and he began neglecting the things he once found very important, like going to church and participating in sessions for the Army Training Corps. As her once vibrant and outgoing son became increasingly irritable and disobedient, Lauren knew she had to figure out what was going on. These are all classic symptoms of depression. He also had another key symptom of depression, irritability, which sometimes presents instead of the more commonly known symptoms of depressed mood or sadness. Irritability is found in the diagnostic criteria of depression for kids and adolescents, but not for adults. Then Breck started talking about an internet friend named Lewis. Lauren was familiar with the small number of friends involved in her son's gaming club, but had never heard of Lewis before. Call it mother's intuition, but Lauren just felt something was off about Lewis, even speculating that he might not be the young gamer he claimed to be online. Still, Breck's preoccupation with his new friend snowballed out of control, and before long, he was talking about him all the time and becoming more withdrawn than ever. Lauren attempted to limit Breck's communication with Lewis, but he always found ways around her restrictions. So the uneasy mother felt she had no choice but to call the Surrey police and report her concerns. She explained to the responding operator that she thought her son was being groomed by an older predator, pretending to be a young boy. At the end of the call, the operator said that officers would check out Lewis, but unfortunately, that never happened, and the inquiry was closed just an hour later. On February 16, 2014, after a year of talking online, Breck finally planned a secret rendezvous with Lewis. It would be their first time meeting in person, and he was excited because Lewis had become his closest friend. Lewis had also promised Breck a bright future as the new owner of his multi-million-pound tech company. If only Breck knew the fatal mistake he was just about to make. The following day was the start of half-term, and because Breck was to be staying with his father Barry for the duration, he informed him that he'd be sleeping over at a friend's house on the night of the 16th. While Barry was happy to see his son out socializing instead of sitting in front of his computer, he had no idea that Breck actually planned to take a taxi and stay overnight more than 30 miles away in Grays. Barry waited for Breck to return home the next morning, but he never came, and after multiple calls and texts went unanswered, Barry called Lauren and told her what was going on. Yet just as the pair was formulating a plan, they were struck with every parent's worst nightmare. Breck's gaming club friends had started receiving horrific text messages containing images of a bloody corpse, who they quickly realized was Breck. The photos spread like wildfire, and it didn't take long for word to reach Breck's family, with some people even reaching out to his 12-year-old triplet siblings to ask if the photos were real. A short time later, Essex police got an eerie call they would never forget. Police were very suspicious of this strange account, and upon arriving at the scene, it was instantly clear that the brutal attack was one-sided, with zero evidence of an altercation. That's because they found Breck's lifeless body on the floor, with his ankles and wrists bound with duct tape. In addition, the 14-year-old boy had a massive laceration across his throat. Detectives found Breck's bloody clothes in a trash bag within the flat, and they also uncovered a pile of encrypted electronic equipment underwater in the sink. Lauren, who tragically learned of her son's senseless murder on her birthday, later stated in an interview, So who was behind this ruthless attack? Well, it was none other than Lewis, and contrary to the initial beliefs, he really was a fellow young gamer. Now allow me to shed a little light on this unsuspecting predator. Lewis Danes was a baby-faced 18-year-old unemployed computer engineer who spent most of his time playing online games. Investigators later determined that Lewis had complete control of the specific server used by the boys in Breck's gaming club, but apparently none of them really knew him. At 16, Lewis moved out of his family home and allegedly became very isolated from the outside world. Then he created an online persona that portrayed him as a multi-millionaire and started chatting with the younger boys. While they first respected his authority, Breck's other friends grew frustrated with Lewis over time, saying he would often mute them on the group chat and kick them out of games. However, they told detectives that Breck's allegiance to him intensified the more they tried to distance themselves from Lewis. Lewis displayed several psychopathic traits. He was charming, narcissistic, and he loved being in control. Muting the boys and kicking them off the games was one way he exerted his control. He was also highly intelligent, and his creation of a false persona about being a multimillionaire shows that he was a pathological liar. During the 911 call, he displays more psychopathic traits, such as when the 911 operator asked Lewis if his friend is definitely dead, and Lewis lets out a small laugh as he says yes. He has a very shallow affect, and at times is condescending, telling the operator on more than one occasion to not interrupt him. It's almost as if he is enjoying himself as he recounts the murder, and he shows no empathy for the suffering he's inflicted. And he is enjoying the power he has over the 911 operator when he tells her not to interrupt him. He even hangs up on the operator at the end, once again showing that he is in control of the situation. Lewis was arrested on the spot following the discovery of Breck's body and taken into custody. He contended that Breck's death was an accident, but his story had significant holes. As a result, his trial date was set for November 25, 2014. However, he surprisingly changed his plea and confessed to the killing during the pretrial hearing. During this time, prosecutors commented on the brutality of the crime, noting the steps Lewis had taken before the murder, which included buying condoms, duct tape, and syringes. It's likely that Lewis chose Breck as his victim well in advance. He saw that Breck was vulnerable and he took advantage of that situation. He likely gave Breck privileges and attention that he didn't give to the other boys, which made Breck feel special and therefore more loyal to him. Lewis was good-looking, charismatic, and he was idolized by Breck. He spent months earning Breck's trust, only to brutally kill him, achieving complete control. On January 12, 2015, Lewis Danes was handed a life sentence with a minimum term of 25 years in prison. Breck's mother said of the ruling, "No amount of years behind bars will ever change the poisonous attitude and actions of a psychotic animal who can behave this way." The Crown prosecutor also spoke to the court, saying, "The degree of planning and manipulation by Danes is shocking, and when you consider the young ages of perpetrator and victim, it stands out as one of the most cruel, violent, and unusual cases we have dealt with." Lauren and Barry took legal action against both the Surrey and Essex police departments for neglecting their reports of possible grooming. Unfortunately, it didn't take long for the Independent Police Complaints Commission, IPCC, to discover that the responding operator was ill-equipped to handle such a call. Beyond not being connected with a specialist agency, police never ran a background check on Lewis Danes. If they had, they would have seen on his record that he'd been accused of assaulting another young boy in 2011. Desperate to prevent this from happening to another innocent family, Barry and Lauren established the Breck Foundation, which seeks to create a safe internet environment for minors. Their slogan urges gamers to play virtual, live real. The Bednar family may never recover from the tremendous loss, but they find a bit of solace in knowing their actions may help save another young life. Haley Anderson was a 22-year-old nursing student at Binghamton University in New York. The shining fifth-year senior had many friends, and in one of her classes, she befriended another student named Orlando Tercero, a 23-year-old Nicaraguan native with dual citizenship. The two developed romantic feelings, but Haley made it clear that she wasn't interested in anything serious. Plus, she was already involved in an on-again, off-again relationship with her ex-boyfriend, Kevin Acampo. By all accounts, Haley just wanted to enjoy her freedom while in college, which included dating with no strings attached. Many reports state that Orlando simply couldn't accept the idea of her dating around. Haley's friends recall him being obsessed with her, with one of her roommates reporting that Orlando would frequently come by their off-campus apartment without invitation. She also said that Haley attempted to distance herself from Orlando, but her kind, trusting nature made it extremely difficult. Orlando's roommates spoke of their relationship, saying, "Sometimes they were bickering, and other times they would laugh hysterically, and other times they kept their distances and wouldn't see each other for a little bit." It all seemed harmless, but then in September 2017, things took a threatening turn. Haley posted a Snapchat video showing that someone had slashed her car's tires. Kevin had been staying the night at her place, and not so coincidentally, Orlando had allegedly found out that he was dating Haley again the night before. Kevin said that he told Haley right away, it must be Orlando, and he wasn't the only one who felt that way. Many of Haley's friends and family felt Orlando was responsible for the vandalization, but he denied the accusations and even tried to pin it on Kevin. Haley's mom was outraged and encouraged her daughter to file a police report against Orlando. However, when Haley realized it would be a felony charge with up to $600 in fines, she decided against reporting the incident. Her mother believes that she didn't want to be the reason Orlando was removed from the nursing program. Orlando exhibited the following common signs of violence toward a partner: showing extreme jealousy and possessiveness by not accepting that Haley wanted to date around, destroying belongings such as allegedly slashing her tires when she began dating her ex again, and unpredictability. He also exhibited stalker-like tendencies, and his violence escalated over time, starting with allegedly slashing her tires. Over the next few months, Haley kept Orlando at arm's reach, but she eventually let him back into her life again, a choice that would soon prove to be a fatal mistake. While we can only speculate why she did this, it's quite common for victims in these situations to return to their abuser. There was clearly something about Orlando's personality that drew Haley to him initially, but abusers are not abusive all of the time. There are periods of time where the abuser can be quite charming and pleasant, which is something that makes the victim stay or draws them back in after they've left. Haley also didn't have solid proof that Orlando was the one who slashed her tires, so she may have rationalized to herself that he didn't deserve to be punished. From the way she's described, Haley was a very compassionate and empathetic person, which could be a factor in why she continued her friendship with Orlando despite the warning signs. On March 9, 2018, Haley failed to show up to a planned hangout at a local bar and was unreachable by phone. It was very unusual for her not to answer calls or texts, and her friends couldn't even track her on Snapchat. Now, instead of calling the police and having them do all of the work, Haley's two roommates, Josie Arden and Michelle Topali, took investigative matters into their own hands. While it can take days or even weeks for police to obtain cell phone records and narrow down ping locations, Haley's roommates simply opened the Find My Friend's iPhone app. Oh, but when they did, the young women were horrified by what they saw. Haley's phone was in Orlando's house. Unbeknownst to the two friends, Orlando's sister had already contacted police that day, requesting a welfare check at her brother's home. She said that he left her an ominous voicemail message, but no one answered the door when police arrived, so they left. That phone message could be a key in understanding Orlando's state of mind on that fateful day. Michelle and Josie sprang into action and made their way over to the house. When there was no answer at the door, Josie hoisted Michelle through an open window and then pulled herself inside. As soon as she got in, she heard Michelle scream, "Josie, call 911. Haley's pale, lifeless body was draped across the bed, and Orlando was nowhere in sight. Authorities descended on the scene and found Haley with apparent bruising to her arms and neck. An autopsy the following day concluded that she'd been strangled and listed her cause of death as asphyxiation by neck compression. Meanwhile, investigators were busy reviewing surveillance footage from outside Orlando's house, and at around 4 a.m, they saw Haley willingly enter the residence. She was never caught on the tape again, but Orlando appeared several more times. Because she entered the house willingly, it's clear that Haley trusted Orlando, and he completely broke that trust. Receipts found inside the house showed that one of those times was during a trip to CVS, where he purchased over-the-counter sleep aids. Detectives also found evidence that suggested Orlando had attempted to take his own life, including a Spanish written note reading, "I'm so sorry for this, Father. I will see you soon." Then he was seen walking out the front door one last time, carrying luggage. Police quickly realized that Orlando had boarded a plane more than 3 hours away at New York's JFK International Airport and flown back to Nicaragua. He was captured on airport cameras with some kind of large bandage around his head, possibly from attempting to take his life. It is possible that he did not actually want to die himself, which is why his attempt failed and he chose to run away instead. Another possibility is that he didn't have access to more lethal means, such as a gun. But his attempt at escape shows that Orlando knew what he did was wrong. Now police were dealt the grueling task of catching a fugitive on the run in another country, and some of them feared Orlando had just gotten away with murder. But then, 4 days later, Orlando's mother brought him to a local hospital to treat his head wound, and Nicaraguan authorities arrested him. He was charged with second-degree murder. But based on his dual citizenship status, it wasn't going to be easy to bring him back to the U.S. An existing treaty between the two countries stated that neither was required to extradite one of its own. So, much to the dismay of Haley's loved ones, Nicaragua declined to extradite Orlando. As a result, his overseas trial began on September 1, 2019, and he was now being charged with femicide under Nicaraguan law. This charge doesn't exist in the U.S., but represents the murder of a woman romantically involved with the defendant. Prosecutors painted the picture of a scorned college boy who couldn't handle Haley's rejection and let jealousy take over. On the other hand, Orlando's defense claimed their client had experienced temporary insanity at the time of the murder. Orlando didn't have temporary insanity, as his defense claimed. He exhibited a clear pattern of jealousy and possessiveness when it came to Haley. It was too much for him to have Haley in his life, and possibly in his classes, but know that she would not fully commit to him. Orlando likely felt that if he couldn't have Haley to himself, then no one could, which ultimately led to him making the decision to kill her. Murder was his permanent solution to keep Haley away from everyone else. Once both sides rested their case, the judge took just 90 minutes to reach a verdict: guilty of femicide. Orlando was handed the maximum sentence of 30 years in a Nicaraguan prison. On February 4, 2020, Orlando appeared in court once more to appeal his conviction, citing the need for another psychological evaluation. But the appeal was ultimately denied. As if it wasn't shocking enough that a fellow nursing student killed Haley, someone who's supposed to be dedicated to helping others, Orlando was also someone she trusted and defended. Haley's father mournfully stated of his beloved daughter, "She was a kind, compassionate person who always saw the good in people and wanted to become a nurse to help others." Haley Anderson was loved by so many, and the swift action taken by her roommates says it all. I mean, they located her body before the police using a popular networking app. Our story begins in St. Augustine, Florida. 21-year-old Amy Blount, a senior at Flagler College, was out on the town at a place called St. George's Tavern with a group of friends. It was getting late, and Amy's roommate, Kelly Brockman, decided to call it a night. When she left, Kelly said Amy was still at the tavern with a boy she had a crush on, named Sean Nolan. Kelly fully expected Amy to be back at their dorm room the following morning, so she was surprised to find her bed empty when she woke up. It wasn't typical of Amy to stay out all night, but at first, Kelly just figured her friend simply got swept away in a budding romance. However, when Amy failed to attend her classes that day, Kelly reached out to Sean for some peace of mind, but what he told her only intensified her fears. According to Sean, he left the bar at around 2 in the morning with Amy to go for a walk along the coastline. He explained that everything was fine until they got into a fight while waiting for a taxi. When the cab finally arrived, Sean said he got in and headed home while Amy walked off into the darkness on her own. The young man claimed that was the last time he saw her. But Amy's friends weren't buying his story. Kelly would later state in an interview, "As much as Amy liked Sean, I thought Sean didn't seem like he was really too concerned, to be honest." Amy's disappearance was reported to the local police, and Kelly took on the grueling task of informing her parents. Naturally, Amy's friends and family got right to work, trying to retrace her steps and passing out posters with her bright face. Meanwhile, detectives brought Sean down to the station for an interview, and they were instantly put off when his story changed from what he had told Amy's friends. In this different account of events, Sean told police that Amy had suddenly vanished while he was using a payphone to call a taxi. So investigators tracked down the cab driver, but things only got more confusing when he told them that Sean had been asleep on a park bench when he arrived. The driver also ominously said there was no sign of Amy anywhere. Around 10 days after her disappearance, authorities posted a $10,000 reward for any information leading to Amy. Many tips came flooding in, but only one proved valuable, and it came from a man named Timothy Gatchell. He told investigators that he recognized Amy from the flyers and had seen her downtown on the night she vanished. But then, he said something truly chilling. He saw her get into an older model vehicle with two unknown people. While the shocking new information scared Amy's loved ones, her family was so grateful for the help that they actually called Timothy to thank him personally. Police started scouring the area for cars matching Timothy's description, but were getting nowhere. Then a gruesome break in the case came a few weeks later. On New Year's Day, 1991, a man walking his dog in a secluded area of St. Augustine saw something horrific within a pile of logs. It was human bones. Officers rushed to the scene and discovered the corpse of a young woman wrapped in a floral bedsheet and hidden in a shallow grave. The victim was wearing the same clothes described by Amy's friends as those she was wearing on that fateful night, and slashed holes suggested a horrific cause of death. Although police already suspected it to be Amy, dental records confirmed her identity, and an autopsy revealed she had been stabbed 5 times. The once vibrant student also displayed bruises on her head and shoulder, indicating some kind of violent struggle had taken place. Investigators turned their attention back to the site where the body was found, as it seemed like a place only someone local would know. They contacted the property owner and learned that he rented out 2 mobile homes on the land. As a side note, he mentioned that one of the tenants had been giving him some trouble, and when he told investigators the man's name, their jaws hit the floor. It was Timothy Gatchell. Timothy was a high school dropout who worked random jobs around town and struck many people as strange. Police actually had some suspicions of the Good Samaritan from the jump, but they were put to rest when he passed a polygraph test, although those tests are notoriously unreliable. You could call it police intuition, but there was just something that wasn't right about him, said one of the detectives working the case. Sparked by this new development in the case, authorities raced to Timothy's home and found everything from traces of blood and long hair that matched Amy's to a floral sheet matching the one located at the crime scene. That might have been enough, but they also noticed a small piece of paper containing a phone number alongside the name, Toby. Police called the number and spoke with Toby, who said he'd been out at the bars with Timothy on the night in question and saw Amy. Toby was brought in for a formal interrogation, where he continued to tell them that he was driving when they saw Amy walking alone. Timothy told him to pull over so he could offer her a ride, and he did. According to Toby, Amy willingly got into the car, and they all headed back to Timothy's house. He alleged that Amy seemed uninterested in Timothy's advances towards her, but after going to the bathroom, he went back to his own house and didn't see either of them again that night. When Toby saw Amy's face all over town in the following weeks as a missing person, he confronted Timothy, who insisted he brought her back downtown later that night. He also said he saw her talking to 2 men in an older model car. So Toby, believing his friend needs to clear his name, urged Timothy to contact the police and report what he witnessed. That was more than enough for the police, who quickly returned to Timothy's house and arrested him. He initially maintained his innocence, swearing he brought Amy back downtown using the property owner's truck after Toby left. Now, that might have been just peachy if investigators hadn't uncovered a major flaw in his story. The truck he claimed to have used was resting in the driveway with 3 flat tires. Sensing he'd been caught in a lie, Timothy finally started talking about what really happened that night. He admitted to fighting with Amy, but then said he blacked out, and when he woke up, Amy was lying on the floor bleeding from multiple stab wounds. Timothy finished by telling detectives that he went outside and dug a hole, wrapped Amy in a sheet, then said a prayer as he carried her body out to the shallow grave. Timothy Gatchell was charged with first-degree murder, and his trial was set for July 1991. Instead, however, he pleaded guilty to avoid the electric chair and was given a life sentence without the possibility of parole. Amy's family was devastated to learn that the person who took her away was the same person they trusted to be helping them. "We hope someone will kill him in prison. We wanted him to die in the electric chair," Amy's sister stated.